I would like to introduce Julie Stoltman, who will be presenting today on the power and promise of group coaching. Welcome, Julie. As the founder of Reframe Career and Leadership, Julie's a genuine partner who cares about supporting professionals in their journey to clarify what meaningful work means for their lives. She creates the guided space for people in the middle of their careers, however they define it, to ask powerful, introspective questions and articulate their values to create a pathway forward. She offers one-on-one coaching that's tailored to where you are in your career and is designed to help you figure out what comes next. She also offers group coaching workshop series that are designed to build community among mid-career professionals with shared experiences and goals. Julie earned her bachelor's degree here in political science and women's studies from the University of Rochester. She also holds an advanced degree in gender development and globalization from the London School of Economics. Julie, we are so happy to have you with us today. And with that, I will pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Becky. Can everyone hear me all right? Great. All right, I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. All right. So let me just get this started. Okay, so everyone can see. So I am, as Becky said, the founder of Reframe Career and Leadership. And again, class of 2006, you're going to learn a little bit about me in this webinar, as well as obviously about the power and promise of group coaching, which is something that I feel very passionate about and have seen really a lot of movement with the people that I've worked with. And I'll give you some examples as we go through. So before I get started, I always like to give people a sense of my why, so you understand what it is that I do and why that is. So Reframe Consulting and my why believes that no one is as invested in your career as you are, because no one is as invested in your life as you are. So my philosophy is around people being able to take control and make an investment in their career as a point of course. So not something that we do sort of at crisis points or at the times where we want to do transitions, but really as a matter of how we live our lives. I believe investing in our careers is a fundamental act of care, not just for ourselves, but for our families and our communities, because everyone deserves to thrive at work. And organizations deliver their missions best when people are engaged in work and feel valued and are at their best mentally, physically, and emotionally. And on a systemic level, so if we think really globally, for me, I believe our world needs more leaders that have the tools and the mindsets, most importantly, to drive sustainable change. So if y'all wouldn't mind popping in the chat, I'd love to hear where people are and maybe what class year you are. So I am in Seattle, Washington right now, as I said, at 2006. So I missed my 15-year reunion, didn't have a chance to celebrate that last year, but hoping to go in June. So the objectives today, we're going to talk about what group coaching is, the impacts, talk through some case studies, and then hopefully get a lot of time to answer questions. So if people are sort of popping in where they are, I'm also curious if anyone has a gut sense of where that picture is taken. So when I was thinking about this webinar and wanting to get across the feeling that comes from doing group coaching, I thought about where I would be at Rochester when I was a student and where I would go when I needed to have some time to think about what was happening next, to do some introspective thinking, not to be in full-on studying memorization mode, but to really be able to take a pause between what I was doing on that day-to-day basis. And for me, that happened when I was in the Wells Brown room. So this picture is actually I found this on the U of R archives, of some women in the Wells Brown room just having a nap, I guess. I also like to remind people, this is for many of you your lunch hours if you're on the East Coast. And so feel free to stretch and relax. Hopefully you'll be a little bit more engaged than these women here. But yeah, we'll just get started. But thank you again for taking the time to be here. Okay. So my story, So there you see me in the middle, and those are good friends from U of R on our graduation day in 2006. So as Becky said, political science, women's studies. I was involved in campus women's caucus. I was a teaching assistant for political science. I was a resident advisor in Tiernan Hall and a campus tour guide, which is probably one of the things that helped with the public speaking that I do now. So I think in this picture, maybe you see someone idealistic. I certainly felt like I wanted to go out and change the world. But at the same time, I had no idea what I wanted to do for a career, right? There were many, many, many ways I wanted the world to be a better place. And I was inspired by the people that I met and all the possibilities. But at the same time, it was really overwhelming to figure out, what do I actually do? So then what I did was go straight into a graduate degree, which was wonderful. And this is a picture of me and some friends graduating from the London School of Economics. And I went back to London after having studied abroad there during Rochester. So again, a really formative experience set the stage for the beginning of my career. My first job was working for that same member of parliament that I had interned for during my study abroad, which was an incredible experience. I moved into being a policy analyst around women's economic advancement, which was exactly where I wanted to be. I mean, it was a dream job that I never even knew existed, I would say. And then went and worked in the field of equalities for local government. So objectively, here I am, my career is kicking ass, I'm enjoying it. But at the same time, there was a sense of wanting something more and feeling as if I could be doing something more. So this is the part of transitions. And this is where I talk about, and I see in the clients I work with, this transition from early in our career to mid-career level. And so there's a picture of me and fellow U of R grad Carolyn Spencer in Seattle. This was after I had made a move from the UK to the US. And for me, I came in with, I've got an amazing resume. I've done this for the UK government. I'm going to be able to get a job, no problem. And yet, this is what I like to call my why won't anyone hire me phase. I thought I was doing everything right. I was looking at all the career tips and updating my resume and trying to make connections, doing all the things that, you know, I heard and would read in different places were what was done when you were making a transition and looking to get a new job. But yet I was back to square one. Now, eventually I found a job in local government at a lateral level that I had been at in the UK. And I enjoyed it, but I had this sense of, I've already done this. Like, I'm not sure I'm learning. Is this, what am I moving towards? So it's a kind of a sense of reaching a plateau, which again, I share because many of the people that I work with, it's a similar sentiment that comes across of like, I've done things and I don't really know what comes next. Now for me, what reaching a plateau looked like was continuing to push and try and put pressure on myself and not go anywhere. And that for me came out in the form of chronic neck pain, which led to burnout. And I bring this up because while my experience was my own, I don't think there's anyone out here who hasn't faced a career challenge or a point in their life where there have been physical manifestations of pain from being somewhere that you don't want to be. So what happened next for me is going to see a career coach. It was the first time I had ever done that. I had no idea what to expect with career coaching. And I went in with my, I think it was $180. And I thought, oh my God, this is so much money. And I was determined to get my worth from it and basically spilled everything out that I'd been feeling and left in tears but made some really important decisions right after that. So it was a powerful experience. So I want to pause here, and I would love to invite to the chat. So I've seen here why you're joining this career conversation today. So I've got some parents looking at ways to explore. If people have any feelings or thoughts that are coming up as I share my kind of career story, I'd love to hear what's coming up for you all in this. Because I think it's really important to understand that our careers and our lives are not separate. We are not two different people. It's not Julie, the career coach, and Julie, the mom, or Julie, the community member, or Julie, the alumni. We're one person, but it's really difficult to be able to go to work every day. You work 40 hours a week in a full-time job. And if you're feeling less than, if you're feeling undervalued, if you're feeling as if you could do more, if you're feeling as if you're not getting the feedback that you need, it's really hard to then shut off those feelings and then go and live your life with no impact. So I bring this up because oftentimes this idea of talking about feelings and career, it can seem a little bit woo-woo, for lack of a better word, but it's important and it's real. And so acknowledging that and making the space for that is one of the things that I do in my work, and especially in group coaching. So in terms of the themes, so hopefully as you're listening, you're hearing some of the themes that were happening in my story. Maybe you're thinking of some of them that are coming up. I want to share some of the themes that come out in the people that I coach through group coaching workshops. I'm the only one feeling this way. I'm the only one who doesn't know what I'm doing with my career. All these other people on LinkedIn and Facebook are telling me about the amazing things they're publishing or meeting or traveling to. I'm the only one who doesn't know. I should be doing more. God, I was working in the UK government. Why am I here in, Nowheresville, Washington, doing a job? I should be changing the world. Oh, I know I should be networking. That's what everyone says is really important is networking. I should have my project management degree, and I should have this skill, and I should learn R, and I should get this certification. All these shoulds, all these things that we individually feel that we need to be doing more of. It's all on me. That's a sense that I hear from clients in every single group coaching session I have. And I want to draw our attentions back to, why wouldn't we be feeling pressures to do it all? Because look at all the messages we get when I'm looking to find a new job or trying to understand why I'm not getting one that I want. Try 29 tips. If I want to advance my career, I want to see why I'm not at the level I want to. Here's 33 ways you can do it. What about this? You don't understand why you're not standing out? Well, here's 6 things you need to do. You're not using hashtags correctly. I don't even know what hashtags do, but I got to learn that in order to feel like I'm sharing my best self. And then my favorite is the inspirational quotes that pop up. So I bring these up here because there's a lot of messaging that we need to be doing things, but at the same time, when are we supposed to be living our lives and doing our current jobs? There's a lot thrown at people, and it's thrown at us in a way that makes it feel that it's on us as individuals to commit to something. And that's not what I believe. So here's the alternative version. What if people who are at a similar place got together to ponder these important career, and again, career and life can't be separated, questions? And what if instead of only hearing the voice in our head telling us where we're at is our fault and we should be doing more, what if we heard the voices of other people who had faced similar struggles and maybe who are in similar struggles at the same time? And what if instead of solely venting to your colleagues or complaining to friends or coworkers or your partner, which are all valid things to do, and I have done that and continue to do that. But what if instead you verbalized these frustrations in a space designed to hold them? That was my question. So I put together a group coaching workshop. And through doing this group coaching workshop for the last 4 years, I've learned what group coaching is, the power and the promise. So group coaching is a place to go when you are stuck, when you feel stuck. It's a time and date on your calendar to talk about careers in a productive and affirming space. And that's important because so often the voice in our head telling us we need to do more or remind us to update our resume, it keeps going and it will fill all the spaces. But being productive about moving forward is really hard. And a group coaching means that you are committing to putting time on your calendar to take that action and that movement forward. Group coaching is the exposure to people who work in different industries and job roles to learn from them. Because truly, how often do we get in a room with people who have similar years of experience perhaps, but work in entirely different fields? And we get to see the commonalities that are coming out. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Group coaching is the accountability to move through the hard parts and into a more generative space. And again, so many of the people who come to group coaching have a mindset of, I just need more self-discipline. Like I need to just do this and update my resume, and then I need to update my cover letter, and I know I'm going to network more, and I'm going to sign up for this webinar, and I'm going to do this LinkedIn learning. And that's not realistic. But group coaching and that date and that time in your calendar, that's your accountability because you're moving through it with people. Group coaching is also doing introspective work in community instead of on our own. And that's critical, again, because as much as I loved curling up on the couch in the Wells Brown room and thinking about what could I do after Rochester, it's really hard to just have it ping pong around in my head, just my perspectives. And group coaching is guided by an experienced facilitator who checks for advice giving and keeps the focus on open-ended questions and dialogue. So not just taking my words for it, but here are some words of people who have been in workshops in group coaching and why they come to it. People may really be in a good place with their job, but are feeling disengaged. And rather than staying in that feeling, they want to learn more about why they might be feeling this way and be proactive about changing course. For a lot of people, and I would say a lot of the women who come to group coaching, having the intentional time to think about what they stand for and what to do next is really crucial. People are saying that they've been very reactive. And I know for myself, being reactive, here's this opportunity. So-and-so wants to hire you over here. This opening popped up in this other division and it's a opportunity to make more money. Those may all be really good opportunities in our career. They're also reactive. And so being able to spend time being intentional about where you want to get to in your career. And a lot of people thinking about at the mid-career stage, what work actually leaves me feeling fulfilled? How can I balance doing meaningful work with the other goals I have in my lives? So these are the type of people and the thoughts and experiences they're having who come to group coaching. So I want to talk through a couple of case studies. I mean, these are real people. So I want to share about Sophie. So Sophie came to a group coaching workshop. And in this particular workshop, I had people who, someone was a user experience designer at a tech company. I had a recruiter. I had a nonprofit case manager, a city planner. Sophie worked in public outreach. And what Sophie said in the group when she was verbalizing, she said, I want to go into sustainability work, but I don't have my certification yet. I know I have to go back to graduate school. So I can't do it yet. And the group was asking strategic questions, which is what the framework that I use. And so they're asking Sophie, oh, how do you know you would enjoy sustainability? What have you done that makes you excited about this field? I'll never forget, Sophie said, well, I wrote my company's sustainability plan, but we're not like a sustainability org. Sophie wrote a sustainability plan. She project managed that. She did the research. She put deliverables in place for an organization of 300 people. That's something. That is something. And if I'm in one-on-one coaching with Sophie, I may be able to say that. But how much more is it amplified when you've got 8 other people in the room making that emoji face of, Sophie, do you hear what you've already done? Maybe you don't need the certificate in sustainability before you apply to the jobs. Maybe you do, and maybe you do want to learn more, but it doesn't have to stop you. So that's one example of what happens in a group coaching scenario. So Lonnie came in, she'd worked in nonprofits. She really cared about supporting people with disabilities. And Lonnie was doing it all. She was working with parents, she was working with people, she was working with government agencies and contracting. She was holding all the pieces. Lonnie hadn't had a performance review ever. There really weren't any structures or processes in place at her nonprofit. And she was a pretty organized person who liked to plan things out and understand when she was going to be getting feedback and be intentional about her work. And Lonnie had been there for so long that she just assumed that they didn't value her because they weren't giving her any feedback. They weren't telling her what she was doing well. She was doing work. She knew her clients valued her, but the organization kind of went mute and left her on her own. And through the group workshop, where she's sharing what impact she wants to make in the world for people with disabilities, and seeing the group ask questions about what it is that she cares about, and then having her passion be lit up and be met with an equal amount of energy, she said, and had this light bulb moment of, oh, I'm allowed to work somewhere that values me. That's a big moment for her. And she should work somewhere that values her. We all should. And finally, Megan. So Megan came to group coaching she is full on in execution mode. She's a recruiter. She can pick up the phone, talk to someone, update the spreadsheet. answer another call. She can do it all. She's got multitasking down to an art form. But the pause, the kind of reflection, that's really hard for her. And so in doing and being in the group workshop with other people, she had this moment where she said, oh, I didn't realize I wasn't the only one feeling this way. Right? Like feeling as if I don't ever get a chance to pause, and feeling as if there might be something more to my job. So this is the power and what happens in group coaching. And I purposely share these stories of 3 women because for me, those are the people who are coming to group coaching. This is not something that I market as something solely for women. And I'm curious because I know that women face an unequal burden of caregiving. There's a lack of representation of women in senior positions. Women have very real penalties faced for being assertive in the workplace and are treated differently. And we know that from social science research. So I am curious about the power of group coaching being a place where women can come in a collective space and recognize that some of the feelings that come up in our careers are not just because of something that we have or haven't done, but it's because the organizations that we work in were not designed for us to be there in the first place. That there are real systemic challenges for women in the workplace, and in coming together and sharing those experiences, we get to a collective level of consciousness that we might not otherwise have done on our own. So at this point, I want to give you a sense of what group coaching looks like from if you could envision it in your head. So for me, this looks like between 5 to 8 participants per session. I pre-pandemic did this in person. I think there's a huge value of being in a room with people and having that in-person interaction. Of course, during the pandemic, that went virtual, and I still do these sessions via Zoom. For group coaching, I think it's important that people are coming at a similar place in their career. So for me, a lot of the workshops I lead are for people who identify as mid-career professional, and there's no prescriptive number of years, but generally I'd say people between 5 to 20 years, which is a pretty wide range. I always work with pre-session reflection questions. So group coaching, while a lot of the work happens in the session, there's also work done ahead of time for you all or for participants to essentially make the time and space to think about the questions we're going to talk about in the group. I mentioned the strategic questioning mode because, quite frankly, there is plenty of advice giving that people in our lives are happy to give. But we want there to be open movement and open dialogue. And so more about clarifying questions versus, have you thought about doing this? Have you talked to my friend Paul? There's also practicing the skills of verbalizing and open expression. And so often when we have things in our mind, the sense making comes from getting it out of our mind into a room. And then it's into this space and you're receiving inquiries from fellow participants. So you're making sense again on what you've been thinking, saying, and then the questions you're receiving. So it's a lot of sense making in the group coaching. So to give you a sense, Make Your 40 Hours Count is a group workshop I lead for mid-career professionals. And I always like to give a sense of the arc and what people get through a group coaching session, because it is structured in a way that gets people to hopefully an outcome. And for me, it looks like we start with this big picture of what impact an individual aspires to make over their career. So how do they want to feel at the end of their career? We also go through some exercises about what are the conditions and the environment and the activities we want to do in an ideal workday. So do we want to collaborate with people all day long? Do we want to work with clients, or would we much rather be, introverting a lot of the day and then having 1 or 2 hours where we're working with other people? So that type of understanding about yourself and how you work best and how you want to work, you're learning that at the early stages of your career, and at the midpoint, you have a good sense of that. And so it's important to be able to define what it is you want more of. We also do reflection on what the individual already has. So again, too often we need to get more of this, get this degree, have more mentors. But oftentimes we don't realize the things that we already have, the people we already have in our corner, the life experience and transferable skills that we have, and the privileges. Again, that what we believe we need might not be what we actually need to move forward right now. And then the creation of a hypothesis. And I use hypothesis because many people are coming into group coaching saying, I know there's something else. I want to do something different. I feel stuck and I don't necessarily know what it is. And the point of this particular group coaching arc is to get you to a point where you're ready to make an educated guess of what comes next. And with that educated guess, we're developing a plan of action, or sometimes I call it a plan to thrive, with bite-sized chunks. So it is not, I am going to go home tonight and update my resume. It is, I'm going to go home and put 20 minutes on my calendar and work on the summary statement of my resume. It's much more manageable that way. And so finally, to talk through, as I said, the power and promise, these are all the words, so word cloud, from the feedback collected throughout all the group coaching workshops I've done. This is what people find most valuable: the connection with other people, the community, the opportunity to reflect and articulate, the space, having a pathway. I think it's a really powerful representation of what's different about group coaching, as opposed to talking to friends and family, keeping it all in your head, or even doing one-on-one coaching with someone, which is incredibly valuable and I love doing and feel that there's tremendous space and impact with. But group coaching is something different, and it gives you that community and accountability with people who are cheering you on, quite frankly. So at this point, I would love to talk with y'all and answer some questions, and you can always contact me later on. I know Becky will share links out in the chat, but I'll stop sharing now and hopefully start to see some faces.
That's great. Thank you so much, Julie, for all this great information about group coaching. And we have had a lot of messages coming in through the chat in response to some of your questions and comments during your presentation. I have Claudia that would like to come on and chat with you a little bit. So Claudia, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for your presentation. I loved it because I love coaching, and I really believe that it is helping us now in this century. One of my questions is, how fast have your clients showed, or your coaches how fast have they showed their changes?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have noticed them, how fast this process?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. I would say, and I just started a group coaching workshop this Monday. I would say that in every cohort of people, at least one person is moving jobs during the workshop series. At least one or two are moving pretty quickly after. I've had the experience of people a year later reaching out and saying, hey, I used that worksheet we came up with and I just went for this thing. And so it really depends how motivated people are and how clear they are that they want to move somewhere else. Because for a lot of people, even just understanding where they are, making sense of that in the workshop is important. And then it opens up a space of possibilities, and then they can take the time that they need to figure out, okay, am I ready to move? Or is it enough that I know where I am right now and then I can be open to what comes next? So it totally varies, but I will say I always have people who move roles, you know, within the course of the workshop.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia, very much. Gail, I see a few messages from you in the chat. Would you like to be able to come on screen and we'll have you ask them in person?
Sure. Well, we started up these job search accountability teams at this career ministry, mostly during COVID, because we were really worried about the isolation of people in addition to getting rejected.
Yeah.
And they took off like a rocket, to the point where we were running them on a regular basis. The only issue I have, like we run them 3 times a year, we're getting ready to kick off a session, is sometimes I'm finding we're in our 3rd year now. We're getting people who are, they keep signing up because we limit them to 12 weeks. We used to let them ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And we found people just sort of, weren't attending regularly. They're still not moving forward. We have something called we suggest a marketing plan to identify 25 target companies.
Mhm.
And the 5th time they're signing up, we have a form, they still haven't taken that workshop. And I'm kind of like, okay, hello.
Yeah.
Why are you here? How do you find a way to really boost that? The other thing we do is we teach people Slack and make them put SMART accountability goals, at least 3 each week,
Mhm.
trying to do that. But what do you do with that individual that just, they keep showing up, but they're not moving?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, for this workshop series, it's a 3 session. So it's like they know what's coming in, what they're going into, and what they're going to leave with. I have had people who at the end of the 3 sessions will come to me and say, hey, I have a good sense of kind of what I want to do, but I know myself and I know that I need more one-on-one accountability. And so I generally will say, all right, well, maybe let's do some individual group coaching. And in the process of saying, okay, this is what a 6-session coaching package looks like. This is what we're going to be doing. This is the investment of time and money. Because so often, if people have something on their list where they know they have to do and they're not doing it, it's about getting into their mindset of why they're not doing it. So tell me why. Tell me more about this. I asked one client who was feeling very isolated during COVID, and she was feeling a need to be with people and to do creative work. And I said, oh, look, this art academy has a drop-in this weekend. It's $15 and you're just going to draw. Doesn't that sound great? She said, that sounds great. So I checked in with her during the week. I said, oh, did you go to the art? And she said, no. And then when we met in session, I said, tell me more about that. Tell me more. She said, well, I just, I like to get a sense of, where things are. And I wasn't sure about the drive, and I wasn't sure about, showing up with people. And I said, okay, tell me more about that. And we went into this conversation where ultimately what came out is she is feeling incredible anxiety about leaving her house. And so something that she knows will make her feel better when she gets there, she can't do it because of the other piece. And so it's about sometimes in individual coaching, I'm not taking the first thing at face value. I'm able to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what's the root cause of some of the, even procrastination, right? Procrastination is not about people being lazy. It's about people having some blocks around whether or not they should do that, or some fears. So I think getting at the fears and kind of demystifying what those are is really what I work at in the one-on-one coaching after people have sort of said, I know that I know myself, I know I'm going to need a little bit more.
Yeah, we go after people who are either HR or job search coaches, because with the idea that a lot of times people do leave our groups and want to go, and do that, but yeah. The other thing I find, the number one reason people join some of the job search accountability teams are because they consider themselves introverts and they're
Mhm.
very uncomfortable with networking.
Yeah.
Trying to convince them they can do that,
Yes. Yes. I very much try to get away from networking and be like, okay, we're going to demystify it. What feels like an authentic conversation. And sometimes it's like much easier to be in a group when you're both saying, oh yeah, I hate this too. I don't want to do this too. Right. And then kind of demystify it together.
Yeah. I think that's it for my questions. So.
Yeah. Oh, one quick thing I would say is with the kind of networking and the introverting and people feeling self-conscious about that, I think that's one of the values of having a wider community. And so when I have people who are in the workshops, I always say, hey, I'm going to reach out to you in the future because I to connect you with people in other cohorts. And it's a safe place to practice because they both come in through the Reframe community. They know, and I can say like, this person is really just going to be practicing what it feels like. So I think that's another benefit of having an opportunity to practice with people.
Yeah, no, they love it too. Because even sometimes your spouse, when you're unemployed, they're sympathetic, but they don't really understand what that rejection feels like when you've gotten to that third interview and you don't get it.
Yeah,
that happened to my son. He didn't get it, and he found out later his former boss got it. And he goes, "She is more qualified than me, but I didn't know she was in the running."
Right.
So
oh my gosh.
yeah. So
thank you, Gail.
Thank you so much, Gail. And anybody else that has any questions, please feel free to stick them in the chat or just let me know that you want to come on and talk with Julie yourself. One thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about and one of the questions that had come in prior, and that person is not on the call right now, but it was a person that was looking at rejoining the workforce after retirement. And you talked a little bit about mid-career professionals and just kind of, what space group coaching works well in. Is this something that would be good for somebody that is maybe a young alumni or somebody from retirement, or are there groups that you would try to target more of those people in the same career stage? How does that look when people come in?
Yeah, I think for group coaching, having people who have similar intentions is really important. So at mid-career level, it's, figuring out what comes next, where you have a healthy amount of job experience to draw on and that self-awareness. But then you have a significant amount of time you're still going to be working. So you better kind of make that count. I think for someone like that who's re-entering the workforce after retirement, it would be really beneficial to find a group where there are people who are in a similar state, or starting off with a one-on-one counselor and being able to say, like, what are the things you love doing during your career? What are the passions you have now? What do you want to do more of? And then maybe that's a place where going into even a group coaching space where there are people from all different industries, just getting that exposure of what's possible now. If you're going in and saying, okay, I know that I love project management and I love working with kids, but that's all I know and I have no idea what jobs are out there. Even just being in a space with other people who are currently in the workforce and have ideas and connections and have, lots of different jobs exist now that didn't exist maybe for people who had been in retirement or coming back. So yeah, that's a great question though.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And what about, I know with group coaching, and it's great for, asking those questions and open-ended questions and trying to pull that out rather than giving advice. How often would something like helping people build, work on their resume materials, or if somebody comes in and is like, I just need help with interviewing, like, does that piece ever play part into group coaching?
Yeah, I think it certainly could. I've thought about what it might look like for an elongated group coaching session, sort of like as Gail was saying, if it's 12 weeks, you definitely have more space to be able to do some of that in depth. Right now, when people come in and they say, okay, I've gone through the 3 sessions and I know that this is where I want to go next, and I don't feel confident in my resume. What I say to that is, all right, well, let's just work one-on-one in one session and let me ask you questions and have you talk, and then let's build that resume from that place. So I think, yes, absolutely, group coaching can give some parameters of what a great resume building and sort of great interviewing can look like. But I do personally feel that having that one-on-one attention when you're building that is something that's important. But I know that there are many people that do resume building, interview skilling in the group coaching. It might even be Gail, and probably have great success at that.
That's great. And Claudia.
Yes, thank you. Julie, I was going to ask you regarding the levels of education of, that's what I understood. If I am wrong, let me know, please.
Yeah.
The level of education of the people who attend your coaching conversations, that you said that you try to have them like at the same level. Have you thought, because I have been a teacher for 28 years, and so the classroom has been my life, my home, and so when we have students the same ages at the same academic level, you still find differences in their their interests, their knowledge of the specific topic you're teaching, in my case English here in Colombia. But in a coaching session, don't you think that people from different levels would support with their answers? Because this is about lifestyle or life decisions. So I think it for me, I think it shouldn't be a barrier or an obstacle to have different people from different educational backgrounds, for example.
Absolutely. And I may not have made that clear. And there's no kind of education level that I'm looking for people to have in group coaching. I usually just say people who are self-identifying as mid-career professionals, right? So I'll have a session where there's somebody with a PhD, and then other people who will have, their high school diploma. Like it really depends on what level that they're at in their career. But again, it's completely self-identifying. And so I agree with you, like having the different backgrounds and experiences in different sectors and working in different parts of the country or the world, that's where the real juicy conversation comes in as well. So yes, I agree with you. And there's no kind of educational requirements for people in different group coaching.
Thank you, Claudia. Another thing that it would be nice to hear your perspective on is with groups, and you're pulling people in from different areas, and they're meeting for the first time, and they're sharing their experiences. And is there often what happens if there's, well, I'm sure if there's great chemistry, it's great and they're sharing, but if the chemistry is not great, have you encountered that where people aren't maybe feeling as comfortable as you hoped they would? How do you deal with that type of issue?
It's a great question. And because I was coming to group coaching from the field of organizational development, I had been very intentional for a long time about how to create spaces where people are able to show up and understand what are kind of guidelines for the room, what are the expectations, having an agenda in advance that's really clear and that incorporates different learning styles. So I think a lot of the work that goes into that first session and preparing people, so for example, I'm asking people ahead of time, what do you need to feel like you can show up authentically in a group space? And so I'm taking the information that people are providing and trying to create that as a facilitator, and spending a lot more time intentionally in the beginning on making sure that we're all comfortable bringing up our questions and concerns. So I haven't faced that yet where I've had concerns about people, and it's a great thing to consider. I think right now, because it's people who are opting in to this, then there is this willingness to show up and be there and contribute. It would be really interesting to see how perhaps like outplacement counseling, right? So people who have maybe been let go of jobs and then offered services to do outplacement coaching, that might be an interesting place to see what dynamics come up in group coaching, because you might have people with resentments and don't necessarily want to be there, right? But because
Right.
the model I'm talking about, it's people who are intentionally trying to opt in to
Mhm.
get more clarity in their lives. I haven't necessarily seen that with good design, of course.
Mhm. Oh, that's great. And I would hope that, if there is great interaction, that probably springs off into some individual, group members maybe having relationships beyond, or maybe groups choosing to continue together if it's fruitful. And
Absolutely. Yeah. I had my January group actually met earlier this week, just, on
Oh.
their own. So it's
Oh,
really
that's-
rewarding that way.
That's great to hear. But I do want to thank you so much, Julie, for really just providing this great information. And I'm glad that we had some good dialogue. So thank you to everyone who attended today.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm at Reframe Career and Leadership, and happy to talk with anybody. And just another note, I think people often ask, like, I just want to, pick your brain or talk more about it. And so I have an option just for a free conversation, just to kind of let's chat. So I'd love to continue conversation with people, and I appreciate everyone and their
That's
questions.
great. Thank you. And before I sign off too, I did put a few more links. So if anybody wanted to copy and paste those to our career coach page, where Julie is featured as well. And the Meliora Collective, which is a great networking area for anybody that is not on it yet. Please think about signing up. And there's also on the career resources page, you'll be able to find our webinars linked there. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye all.